Trini to the Bone is the seventh episode of Atlanta's third season, and another standalone episode that doesn't feature any of our main characters. In fact, this episode doesn't even feature the city of Atlanta. It takes place in New York City, starring a well-off white family with a Trinidadian nanny named Sylvia. She usually takes the son Sebastian, or Bash for short, to school, but today she's running uncharacteristically late. Bash is watching The Proud Family on his tablet, which seems like a program he regularly views. But Sylvia's absence in the morning has still thrown off his usual routine. Bash is refusing to eat the Eggs Benedict breakfast his mom Ubered for him. That is until Miles puts some spicy mango curry on it at the request of Sebastian. This and The Proud Family are the first indicators that this young boy has been heavily influenced by his nanny and her culture. Miles gets a call and learns that Sylvia is dead. Both parents are shocked by the news, but they decide to withhold it from Bash. There's a jarring knock at the door and no one is there. They receive a package addressed to Sylvia, but decide to mail it back to the sender, suspecting that it was sent to the wrong address. Bash's mom, Bronwyn, takes him to school in light of Sylvia's passing, but he asks for Sylvia the entire time. Bash notices his mother is sad and wonders if it's because she missed yoga. She seemingly misses the implications of her prioritizing yoga over her son and is warmed by Bash's sweet concern. After dropping Bash at school, Bronwyn scoffs over the phone to Miles about a teacher who reprimanded them for missing family picture day. They assure themselves that they couldn't possibly be the only parents who failed to attend. Miles and Bronwyn discuss how to break the news of Sylvia's death to Bash. Bronwyn is uncomfortable with the idea but reluctantly agrees. That night, they struggle to explain the concept of death to their son. And after a few failed attempts at analogies, Miles eventually just blurts out the news of Sylvia's passing. Bash is crushed by the loss of his caretaker, and he asks if Sylvia can tell him goodbye and then go back to being dead. Miles explains to Bash that there are special ceremonies where you say goodbye to people who have died, called funerals. And Bash enthusiastically asks to attend, but Bronwyn is once again apprehensive. Trying to wrap his young mind around the concept of death, Bash asks his mother if Sylvia had returned to Trinidad and Tobago. Meanwhile, Miles goes to answer a knock at the door, and it's the same mysterious package addressed to Sylvia that they've already sent back. Several of Sylvia's personal items are still at the house, and as Bronwyn gathers them, she expresses her uncomfortability with the influence Sylvia has had on Bash. Bronwyn somewhat callously suggests that they hire someone younger and more metropolitan the next time around. It's clear that Bronwyn is uncomfortable with Bash's interest in Trini culture and suggests a Chinese caretaker so that Bash can learn the language of business. Suddenly, Bash sneaks in on them, unable to sleep. He's scared and wants his mother to put him to bed. But Bash is used to the way Sylvia does this, by rubbing his back and singing Trini to the Bone, sweet, sweet TNT. But Bronwyn definitely does not know Trini to the Bone, so she sings Baby Beluga instead. Bash and his parents head to the funeral. They eventually find the venue and are greeted warmly by one of Sylvia's daughters, Khadijah. Others are not so welcoming of the white guests, as a man named Richard refers to them as a cockroach. But Bash does not miss a beat and rattles off the Caribbean phrase,
"Cockroach has no place at foul party,"
which basically means don't go where you're not welcome. Now, kids at this age are like sponges, and Bash finishes some more of Sylvia's Trinidadian sayings, which puts a smile on Khadijah's face. She also knows all about his love of curry and invites them to stay for the wake and eat some traditional Trinidadian food. Bash's parents reluctantly accept the offer. Miles goes to park the car, and this car lot is definitely suspect.
Just Rusty Cock. He's on the hood, and Richie. We'll take care of you.
Now, on the brick wall of the parking lot, we get an Easter egg, a poster of Paperboy promoting his Coming Home tour, which is a subtle indication to us, the audience, that our main characters will soon be back in Atlanta. Bash and his parents enter the funeral, and they bring Bash to the casket to see Sylvia for the last time. Bash is brave, and after he views the body, they take a seat and get to meet some of the other mourners. Devin introduces himself and jumps into an elevator pitch about how he would be a great replacement for Sylvia's childcare services. They sit next to Curtis, a white man who had Sylvia as a babysitter when he was younger. Curtis is played by Chet Hanks, who is infamous for his Jamaican patois accent. Bronwyn assumes he's from Trinidad because of his accent, but he's actually from Tribeca. Curtis is the physical embodiment of their fears for Bash, that he'll grow up completely immersed in another culture, a culture that we assume Bronwyn sees as a lesser culture than Chinese or Caucasian. The funeral service commences, and we get to hear the great accomplishments of this immigrant woman, including that she danced for the Alvin Ailey Dance Company. She was the first in her family to move to New York, and like most who immigrated to this country, would always send money back home to support her family. It's the mention of Sylvia supporting her family by the preacher that prompts her other daughter, Princess, to kiss her teeth. This comment clearly doesn't sit well with Princess. Meanwhile, Bash's parents are surprised that he knows exactly when and how to respond to the pastor. He says yes and amen along with everyone else except for the parents. Miles is especially impressed to learn that Sylvia was related to fictional NFL wide receiver Oswald James. The somber funeral quickly turns into a celebration of life. Everyone's spirits are lifted by the upbeat dancing and singing to her favorite song, Trini to the Bone. Everyone except for Princess. Princess gets up on the podium, snatches the mic, and puts an abrupt halt to the dancing. She aggressively laments about all of the sacrifices Sylvia had to make. They, her actual children, were the sacrifices. Princess is bitter and resents her mother for spending more time raising other people's children than her own. Princess's outburst causes the whole funeral service to devolve.
You've always been crazy, Princess. But what you really doing here?
Calm down right now. Look, you're scaring the white people.
Now that manages to calm the commotion down, and Devin tells them that this is just how they express their sadness. But I don't know how I feel about that line because I've been to Trini funerals, and they don't all break out into fights and people trying to jump in the casket. I'm just saying. On the car ride home, though, Miles can't help but hum Trini to the Bone, but Bronwyn is not amused. Later that night, they offer to let Bash sleep with them, but Bash declines. He says goodnight to Sylvia as if she's still sitting in the chair across from his bed. Back in the parents' room, Bronwyn wonders if they did the right thing by taking Bash to Sylvia's funeral. She's scared that Bash will grow to resent her just like Princess was resentful of Sylvia for not being there. But Miles argues that they are there for Bash. They were there for him today and they will continue to be there for him. Bronwyn and Miles go to sleep, but their sleep is interrupted by another jarring knock at the door. Miles opens the door and discovers that the package addressed for Sylvia has returned yet again. Frustrated, he finally opens it and inside finds photos of Sylvia with Bash on family picture day. Miles is left dumbfounded in the hallway as the episode comes to an end with an a cappella version of Trini to the Bone playing over the credits. So what the hell did we just watch? Why did Atlanta decide to take a detour to New York City and this white family and their Trinidadian nanny? Well, perhaps Donald Glover was inspired by his own real-life experiences. In his 2012 stand-up special, he tells a story about a Trinidadian babysitter in New York City.
And all the babysitters in New York for some reason are Trinidadian. They're all Trinidadian babysitters. The lady goes, "Someone better get this little away from me."
Thematically, the episode continued to explore the racial constructs of black and white in America. Three Slaps told us a story about perception. A kid is uprooted from his home because an overzealous teacher feared for his safety. But he's placed with an abusive foster family who are way more dangerous than his mother ever was. The Big Payback episode showed us how reparations would radically affect the socioeconomic dynamics between white and black people. Rich Wigga, Poor Wigga was a study into the perceptions and perspective of a biracial teenager who is forced to embrace his black side when it becomes advantageous for him. Trini to the Bone continues this examination of black culture juxtaposed with white perceptions. So what did you think of Trini to the Bone? Was this your favorite Season 3 standalone episode? And if not, which one was your favorite? Did this episode put Trini to the Bone in your head? Be honest. Thanks for watching and checking out the other Atlanta videos on our channel, including our complete breakdown of the entire series. You can click here to watch that if you haven't seen it already. And thank you as always for tuning in to Both on Fivs.